Hi there. Today I'm going to talk to you about a question that I get asked a lot, which is what causes bloating after each time I eat? This is something that I hear a lot from people, and they want to know, why am I feeling so bloated when I eat? And so I'm going to share with you a few of these possible underlying root causes that could be contributing to this bloating that they're experiencing. The first one I want to address is eating too quickly and not really fully digesting our food. In today's busy and stressful life, we often eat too quickly, not sitting down to savor our meals and allow for better digestion. And when we eat too quickly, we often take larger bites and don't actually chew our food long enough. I see this happen a lot with people. Chewing is one of the aspects of digestion that we control. Much of what happens in our digestion we don't control, but chewing is one aspect that we do. And it is critically important because digestion begins in the mouth. We need to chew our food thoroughly to help produce more saliva, which has enzymes in it to help break down starches, and it begins the breakdown of fats to a lesser degree. This lack of chewing that people do puts a strain on the system. It requires that further down our GI tract is going to have to do what the mouth was supposed to do. This in turn contributes to bloating and gas and often heartburn and acid reflux symptoms as well. And so it is definitely one that we want to pay attention to. And when we do eat too quickly or are stressed, we don't also produce as much stomach acid and digestive enzymes, which is the second reason we experience bloating. And this is a really big one. Stomach acid and digestive enzymes are both necessary for the breakdown of our foods, including our carbohydrate-containing foods. Stomach acid is especially important since it's necessary for us to break down protein and to help separate out our minerals from our foods and to allow for absorption of certain nutrients like vitamin B12. And there is a common misconception regarding stomach acid. For some reason, it seems that people think we need to suppress stomach acid. And actually, this is a really critical, important part for our digestion because we need stomach acid in order to break our food down. And often when we have too low stomach acid, it's a condition called hypochlorhydria. That particular condition, it actually impacts our breakdown of food. We need that stomach acid. And unfortunately, as we age, we do produce less stomach acid, as well as people who are taking acid blocking medications. So if you're on what they call a proton pump inhibitor or H2 blocker, these are drugs that are intentionally blocking stomach acid, which is going to have a downstream impact on our digestion. And it can lead to this bloating, as I was mentioning. And so, of course, you'd never want to discontinue any medications without consulting your medical provider. So if you happen to be on one of these medications, there is a very specific way of weaning yourself off of those medications while supporting your stomach acid and digestive enzyme production. So definitely not something you want to undertake on your own, but with the help of a trained medical provider, this is something that you can hopefully over time be able to work your way off of. There are obviously some circumstances where that's not possible, but we do need to support our digestive system one way or another. And so this is something that definitely is a very important part of our digestion. And I mentioned digestive enzymes. As we age, we also make less digestive enzymes. And when we're stressed, we make less. And so stress is yet another one that we'll be talking about here shortly, but it impacts our breakdown of our carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And it's going to lead to this bloating often that we experience. Another reason that we look at for contributing to bloating is gut imbalances called dysbiosis. There are microbes in our gut called the microbiome. You may have heard of this. It's important in the functions in our body. They definitely do a lot of different roles in the body. And we have to have an appropriate balance of these microbes. We can get overgrowth of certain bacteria or yeast or other substances, or maybe we have an insufficient amount of the beneficial bacteria that play important roles in the breakdown of our food. So as we eat food, it is the bacteria that actually ferment the food, which leads to gas production and bloating, especially with certain carbohydrate containing foods called FODMAPs. And these are the fermentable carbohydrates. And these can contribute to bloating as well as symptoms of IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. And this can be especially worsened if the bacteria translocates to the small intestine, where they're not supposed to be big numbers of these bacteria. And this can lead to a condition called SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Not everybody has this, but it's something that when somebody's experiencing bloating, it is definitely worth looking into. So even if we're eating healthy foods, we can still be challenged with bloating if our gut microbes are not in balance. And I mentioned stress as being something that can impact our bloating. It also impacts the balance of our microbes. And sometimes when we have too much stress, it can lower our beneficial bacteria. And so let's talk a little bit more about stress in the nervous system. When we are stressed, we produce less stomach acid and digestive enzymes, and our digestion naturally slows down. When we're stressed, whether it's an acute stress like being chased by a tiger, or whether it's a chronic stress like everyday pressures and being in a hurry all the time, our body views this stress state as needing to prioritize our survival. We go into a survival mode. And this is something we call the sympathetic nervous system. When we're trying to be able to survive and not worrying about digestion at that point in time, your body's going to prioritize your ability to survive. And even though we may not being chased by a tiger or lion or whatever, our body is going to view it as, okay, digestion's not important right now. Let's get all the working muscles fueled. So it's going to divert your energy to your working muscles so you can fight or flight or hide, any of those things, in order to get out of that stress. And so at that point in time, our body is going to be shifting the blood flow away from the gut for digestion, and it's going to go to those working muscles, as I mentioned. And of course, once that stress has passed, the digestion will resume, but it can definitely impact our ability to break our food down. We may have a delayed reaction, and it can make us feel bloated and uncomfortable. Also, when we are stressed out and we're going to eat a meal, we tend to eat too fast. And again, contributing to that not chewing food well, as well as not recognizing the signals from our body that that's enough food to eat. Overeating certainly would be another contributor to bloating if we eat beyond what our body needs at that point in time, especially, like I said, if we're not chewing it up. For us to have good digestion, our body needs to be in a relaxed state in something called the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is when our body is relaxed. This is when we rest, digest, and also when our body works on healing. And unfortunately, many people don't spend enough time in a relaxation state during their day. And we definitely need to be relaxed in order for our body to produce those digestive enzymes and stomach acid to break our food down and to allow for the absorption of nutrients, regulate our hunger appropriately, and allow our body to build muscle. And so we really want to think about putting our body in this relaxation state when we're going to eat, so we get that maximum breakdown of our food and so that we're not experiencing this bloating. One of the easiest ways you can shift your body into a parasympathetic nervous system response is to take some slow breaths. I usually recommend doing something called box breathing, where you count to 4 as you're inhaling, and then you hold it for 4 counts, and then you blow it out slowly for 4 counts, and resting again for another 4 counts before we take in the next breath. This slow breathing, and especially that slow exhale, it naturally stimulates the vagus nerve and puts us into more of a relaxation state. And this is something you can do anytime you're stressed, but it is especially helpful to do this before you eat, just to get your body primed and ready for eating. And the nervous system state is really important too to help us be in a place of mindfulness so we can do mindful eating, really noticing the flavor of our food and how that food is sitting with us and what makes our food not too much food at one time, basically. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about that you may not even think about in terms of bloating is hormones. And especially in women, hormones can play a big role in bloating. The main thing is hormones can cause bloating primarily through two main physiological mechanisms: water retention, such as fluid accumulation, and slowed gastrointestinal motility, which again is going to affect that digestion. Elevated levels of estrogen and fluctuations in progesterone, particularly before menstruation or during perimenopause, cause the body to retain excess sodium and water, while also causing the muscular walls of the intestine to relax, which slows down the passage of food and produces more gas. So you might notice more bloating at certain times of the month, even if you're eating the exact same way. If your bloating seems to follow a pattern with your cycle, that's a really important clue that you want to pay attention to. So, as you can see, there are several possible reasons we may be bloating when we eat. And if you feel like you're doing everything right, eating healthy, trying to take care of yourself, but you're still dealing with bloating or other symptoms, this is exactly where a root cause approach can help. I offer something called a root cause health audit, where we look at your nutrition, your digestion, stress, and patterns as a whole to identify what's actually driving your symptoms. So you can address those root causes to allow for better digestion and better overall health. I'll include the link below if you want to learn more. I hope you found this to be quite helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. My name is Michelle McAllister. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, diabetes educator, and mind body coach. And I'm so glad that you've taken the time today to listen to this.